everyone. Really quickly before we start today's video, I wanted to make sure you were aware of a very exciting project I'm a part of, the Kink Bundle, which is an exclusive combination of 16 different classes, workshops, workbooks, and more that I've put together with a group of amazing educators. It is over $1,000 in value. However, it's only available until August 23rd, and I don't want you all to miss this because many of the materials are exclusive to this bundle and can't be found elsewhere, including subjects I know you all are going to want to hear about, like having a caregiver little dynamic, navigating femdom relationships, or discipline and punishment in a power relationship. I'm also contributing my own exclusive class on anal sex and anal training that is not available anywhere else. It's just in this bundle, so don't miss out. Again, it's only available until Tuesday, August 23rd, and I hope you all love it. So with that being said, let's get into today's video. Hello everyone! My name is Evie Lupine and welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing another interview with a very special guest, someone you probably actually already seen on the channel, Justine Cross. Thank you so much for being here, Justine. For people who haven't seen my video reacting to Anthony Padilla's interview with you, would you like to give the audience an introduction to who you are?
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for having me here today. Yeah, my name is Justine Cross. I am a dominatrix based in Los Angeles. I also own Dungeon East. In addition to doing sex work, I do a lot of mainstream media like the Anthony Padilla thing and, consulting with films and a lot of like online sex work and as well as education and consulting.
Oh, I did not know that you consulted with films. Can you talk about that at all? Because that sounds really interesting.
Yeah, well, it's been on a bit of a hiatus for a minute. So sometimes they hire me to do consulting. So I worked as a consultant on Janelle Monáe's Make Me Feel video. And there was a hot pink back bed that mysteriously came home with me. Yeah, so and then, but I also work as like a sort of like glorified, like extra, like they hired me as myself for other films and stuff. Like most recently actually I was supposed to be in Euphoria with a bunch of other really cool people, but they cut us. They essentially shot like $100,000 like porn scene and then we weren't in it. It was disappointing. Anyway,
oh my gosh.
So yeah, stuff like that. So it's nice to see film stuff coming back and feeling safe to be on set with COVID and everything. So
yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's something that I always want whenever I've watched, Bonding or, of course, 50 Shades of Grey. It's always like, can they please get a consultant? I know there's about 50 pro doms in LA that would be more than willing to be in your show and like help you with this. So I'm glad someone is at least going in that direction for hiring professionals to get them in the right direction.
I'm glad they're hiring more. The first season of Bonding was absolutely hard. And the second season, they shot that in New York, so I wasn't involved with that. But the second season, they did hire a lot of professionals. And from what I hear, it's a much better second season, but I still don't believe it deserves our attention. So I've not watched it.
Yeah, no, the second season is definitely better. And I did a review of it on my channel for people who are curious, but they kind of left it on this spoiler, like they left it on this interesting note of a bunch of doms getting together to start their own dungeon in New York after another dungeon had been closed, I think after a raid. So it was like a very interesting plot point, but now they got canceled, I think, so they're not having a third season. So we never get to see sort of, I think the doms kind of come into their own, which is unfortunate. So, but we can fan fiction it if we're all really that interested in what happens, make a better version of it. So you're just all over YouTube, and anyone who seems to want to talk about BDSM on YouTube that's not into kink themselves, like Justine Cross, that's the person to go and get for this. And I'm curious, what led you to be on YouTube so much and work with so many people? Was it just them reaching out to you, or was this really a direction that you wanted to go with your professional work?
Yeah, it is a direction that I want to go with my professional work, and it's a lot of people reaching out to me. People are finding me, one, because I'm just indexed really well. Like I own the domain Los Angeles Dominatrix. A lot of these most of these gigs are in LA.
Mm.
Even if it happened virtually during the pandemic, everyone is in LA. So people are finding me through my dungeon and through just SEO. But, like one thing leads to another. It's like, the Try Guys was because I was on like another podcast with Kelsey for like it Confidently Insecure, and she recommended me, and just like, all these things happen. Like they just keep building on themselves. So it's definitely something I should try for more because it's really fun. But I think more the direction I'd want to go in is actually starting my own show and having my own, like, just doing my own things and not just always being a guest on someone else's. But it's been better lately because people will let me be funny. Like,
Yeah.
I with the Anthony Padilla one, like I felt like I wasn't in it as much as like the other DOMs. It wasn't like as much like fake time, and I was a little disappointed because I felt like that was one of my better interviews, and I felt like a lot of the things I said in there didn't make it on for whatever reason. So I want more control. Well, what a weird thing. I want more control. I want more control of doing my own show and stuff. So it's been fun doing it with other people.
Yeah, I totally get that, like wanting to have control over the finished product. And I think it's funny that they wouldn't let you be funny. Like, did they expect like pro doms in everyday conversation to be like very like stern and like direct all the time or something?
Well, here's what happened. So we're talking about a lot of the YouTube stuff, but I've done a lot of reality TV too. So a lot of the
Oh.
reality TV that I've been on, like they've cut out all my jokes. So because of that, I was very demanding now. Like when I did Anthony Padilla and more so with the Try Guys, and I said, look, do not cut out my jokes. I am really funny. You have to let me be funny. And if you cut out my jokes, I'm gonna come back. I know where you work, and like I'm gonna beat you up. So so then people are like, oh no, we want your jokes. We want your jokes, because it's like I've been in like on like Love and Hip Hop and stuff, and they cut out all the funny things that I said. And because like I'm not the star of the show, like I can't be funnier than like the other character who wasn't like as funny as me, but like I couldn't be as anyway. So that's again why I need to be doing my own things. But now I'm demanding that they do not cut out my jokes. So I'm very happy that they are not, and that is happening now. So yeah, but also I'm not like this like mean dominatrix lady. So
Yeah. I mean, I think that's good to show on media that there's sort of this diversity to the way that DOMs are, like whether it be telling jokes or when Daddy on Lee was on Anthony Padilla's show as well at the same time that you were, I remember being like, I really just want a DOM to just like show up and be comfortable. And like Daddy on Lee showed up and she was wearing like sneakers and sweatpants. And I loved that because it's not all this super stern, like, and that can be right. You can have like the disciplinarian sort of trope, and a lot of people like bring that into their social media, into their presentation when they're on media, because that's sort of the advertising for the rest of their business. But there is, you can be funny and be a diverse person while still happening to be a dominant as part of your professional work.
Yeah, we're not, one trick ponies. I mean, some people might be, but like I'm very multidimensional.
Going back into becoming a professional dominant, I realized we didn't kind of get into that yet. What is it that led you to become a professional dominant? What was that early experience like?
Well, I went to a liberal arts college, so you kind of have to end up being a sex worker. I have degrees in literature and psychology, and I went to school in New York, and I moved out to LA. I guess about 15 years ago now, and then I knew a couple friends in the pro scene, and I just Googled Los Angeles and dungeon, and I found a commercial space to work at, and started working there for about like a year and a half, and then I left that space and became independent. So that meant just doing all my own bookings and sessions and stuff like that, and did that for about a year, and then realized like I was renting from other people and like paying their mortgage, with my sessions and stuff. And so then I decided to have my own Dungeon West. So I had Dungeon West. I ran that for almost 10 years. And then about, God, 7 years ago now, I opened Dungeon. I doubled down. I opened Dungeon East, and I ran, myself as a business, Justine Cross, and both of those dungeons, Dungeon West and Dungeon East, as 3 separate businesses, but that were very overlapping and concurrent. And then during the pandemic, I did close Dungeon West in October of 2020. So that was a little bittersweet, but then I moved into this condo and, this new place with my partner, and Dungeon East is still running. So And a lot of people are using my photos right now. Like a lot of people are using Dungeon West photos and scamming people. So if you see that out there on the internet, let me know so I can
Is
tell Wix to cut it down, you know?
yeah, is that
Yeah.
the one with that's all white? That's a dungeon? Is that one?
No, so Dungeon West was all black and red
Oh,
vibes. The Dungeon East is the all white vibes, and it's all white with all white furniture, and it has that infamous "Yes, Mistress" marquee
mm-hmm.
sign.
Yes. Okay. I was curious about that. So it sounded like it was really the pandemic that slowed it down. Was it just like it didn't seem financially viable anymore, or like what was the decision process behind that?
Well, it was, yeah, so we closed in October of 2020. It was just looking at the numbers. And
Mm,
at that point in October 2020, we were still really deep in the pandemic and there wasn't a vaccine yet. It was
mm,
pre-election. It was not a good time. It was just like I'm like I have to dump this. Like this
mm.
isn't, to save the fleet. I got to dump this
Yeah, yeah,
ship.
yeah.
So and it just made sense and it was also just good for me and where me and my partner were where we're like, you know what, if we dump this space, then we can also just move into another space and just, we just restructured our offices. And now this is I
Mm.
call this my dungeonette. It's my dungeonette office. So before in my home, I just had a little corner office because I didn't need anything else. And now this is like my shoot room and we each have our own spaces here. So it worked out really nicely for us. Everyone else really misses Dungeon West, but it's what I needed to do for me and my business.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it was a good decision, and I love the
Mm-hmm.
ambiance in the background of like the cross and the cage right there.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, a dungeonette. It's perfect.
Mm-hmm. The smallest dungeon I've ever owned. It
Yeah.
was kind of weird when I first got in here. I was like, oh my God, this is only for me? Like, what? Like,
Mm.
no one's gonna move things or it's not gonna be dirty in here? Like,
Mm.
oh, weird. It was so weird to just have my things in my space, you
Yeah.
know?
Not having to have anyone else change anything is a really big deal. I always hate that when I'm in like a shared, I can never do the co-working space where it's like things are always moving and just changing around. I totally get
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So getting more into your work as a professional dominant, what would you say that you're like the most known for? Like, what do clients go to you for?
Honestly, just being really hot and being just a good person. I know some doms have like specialties like medical play or like like bondage and stuff, but it's like
Mm,
I really am a range player. Like I really love doing pretty light stuff like tease and denial, tickling, to like heavy corporal and stuff like that. And I think
mm,
that people, when they see me, because I do so much mainstream stuff, they see me from the mainstream things and realize I'm a real person and I'm a real
mm.
professional. And they see my spaces and they're like, wow, like this lady's really got her act together,
Yeah.
my clients will say to me like, or, I think one client said it best. What he said is, if you see someone as hot as you, they're not as good as you in BDSM, or if they're as good as you in BDSM, they're not as hot as you. And then you have the whole package,
Ah.
and plus you love it. You clearly love what you're doing. Um, so I feel like because when I think about the sessions I do, they're really all over the map. It's
Mm.
what I enjoy doing. I won't do things that I don't enjoy doing, but yeah, I think it's just I'm a hot professional mean lady.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to be said for like the stereotype that people have about doms online. Because I get questions all the time from people about like, "Hey, I'm talking to this dom that we met on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and she says I need to send her a photo of this thing before she'll have a session with me." And it's like, that might be a scam. And I feel like there's been this influx of younger people getting into what they would term being a dom or being a dominatrix or something, but they don't know anything about BDSM at all, and they're just kind of winging it because they look hot. And like there are guys that'll pay for that. They want like the idea of the dominant experience more so
Hmm.
than the actual dominant experience. And I'm curious like what your opinion is about that, or if you've noticed a change in the market, I guess, in the time that you've been providing those services.
Well, I mean, that's how I guess we all date ourselves. Like, well, in my day, it wasn't like this. There was nothing like this. But it's like, that's like just shit. That's just bullshit. It's like, I think it was harder to find DOMs
Mm,
because of the internet. And so I feel like if you were doing it, you understood more about it.
mm,
Rather now, I think that there might be many people who want to do it as a form of sex work where you're not actually having sex with clients.
Mm.
And I think with the internet, like I think it's amazing and powerful that so many more people are getting into sex work and want to get into sex work. But,
Mm-hmm.
a problem in any industry is they're going to be shitty people. There's no like real formal
Mm.
education program. It's not like I can say I'm an RN and I have a certificate and schooling to back that shit up. Like it's I can just be like, I'm a Dom, and anyone can say anything that they want on the internet. But also in the last like 15 years of me being in the industry, so many different platforms and revenue streams of sex work have been diversified and are different, like fan sites being the big one. Like there used to,
Mm.
many like content creators, like they would run their own fan site, and now of course obviously there's OnlyFans, which is problematic in many ways, but like
Mm-hmm.
OnlyFans provided a lot of people with a lot of really quick or better or side income, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that's really good because the more money we have, and many sex workers are women, but I want to talk about, and I not to put things on the binary that the only sex workers are women, but women or any minority needs to have more power, and the way we have more power is more money. And sex work is the only industry in the world where you make more than your male counterpart. So I think that's really
Mm.
important and valuable for us to remember and not be all crotchety. And it's also like, I think what is a bigger disservice is that there's so many social media platforms that won't take down imposters. Like it used to be really
Uh,
easy to get imposters taken down, and that's not happening. Like literally, this right before this interview,
mm.
my catfish imposter messaged me back and said, "Well, I'm making a lot of money with your photos. Let's do this together." And I'm like, "No, like I'm reporting you to Instagram and I want you taken down." And that hasn't happened yet. So I think that that's a bigger issue that has nothing to do with people trying to make money in sex work, just the
Yeah.
platforms.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. Like I follow a lot of prodoms on Twitter and like every day, at least one of them is like, "Hey, report this account. They're impersonating me." And it seems like they're almost the scammers are trying to use this in a way where it's like, "Hey, find this account," and then kind of pretend to do FinDom and be like, "Just send me money to this account." And like if Instagram or Twitter, or whoever, is not taking the responsibility to remove those accounts as soon as possible, like that's definitely going to cause a lot of people to lose money. And it sounds like from what you're saying that they used to be more on the ball about removing accounts and now they're not as much.
Instagram used to take down accounts that I reported within 24 hours, and now they're
Mm.
not. And now I have a lot of people doing it on TikTok, and I haven't logged on
Oh.
TikTok in a while.
Mm.
Um, that my original TikTok got taken down for I don't even know why, because I didn't even really use it. And
Mm.
then So then I made another one, and then I found like five imposters, and I reported them in May. And the last time I logged in, like a couple weeks ago, those reports were still pending and under review. And again, this is dangerous because we don't
Mm.
know who those people are, and we don't know if they're talking to minors, and we don't know what they're doing and saying. And that's my face, and like
Yeah.
I don't know what they're saying or doing, and it's not making the platform safe for a lot of reasons and problems. And I remember a content creator, her name escapes me at the I think it was Jenna Valentine, but I'm not sure.
Mm.
But I remember someone big like had an imposter account, and she said that like this person sent the imposter account like 5 grand because the imposter gave this person some sob story that they needed it for like medical help or bills or something. And she's like, some imposter
Oh
got
my.
5 grand out of someone, and y'all don't want to buy my $5 OnlyFans. And it was just like,
Oh my
I
gosh.
really felt that. I really felt that through to my middle wicket, really. So
Oh my gosh. I can't even like it's the way that social media in general treats sex workers is bad enough as it is, but then they're allowing these spam and impersonation accounts to exist and then get like I can't even imagine like when the does the person even care if they're fake or not? Like I don't like it's so strange. Like especially with TikTok that it would take them months to review a spam account. Like like they already deleted your account, so why would it take them so long to remove the other ones? It just doesn't make any sense.
I know, and that's yeah, that's a huge problem. And again, I never yeah, there's imposter accounts all the time, but it never. It was just like, oh, report this, and it gets taken down. And this is the first time that it's not that they're actually on Instagram. They say, oh, we reviewed the account and we don't see the problem, and it's really strange. So yeah, I don't know. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
am I doing something wrong? Because it's like, they don't, they're being
Mm,
really aggressive in the DMs on social media, which I don't do because I don't want
mm,
my main account being taken down.
mm.
So, uh, you know,
Yeah, it's just so
buyer
weird.
beware.
Yeah, for sure. Like you definitely like when you're looking at pro dom stuff, like definitely make sure that like check how old the account is, make sure like reverse image searching pictures, like do all that good research you should do,
Mm.
especially before you send someone 5 grand on TikTok. Like, oh my goodness. Like,
Yeah, I'm just like, wow, I'm doing something wrong. Like,
yeah.
like, maybe I should talk to these catfish people. Well, I was making a joke that like one of them, when they copied my TikTok, I'm like, wow, they did such a good job. They're better at TikTok than me. I should just do what they're doing because I'm not good at social media. So if you see
Mm.
my social media and it's kind of bad, it's actually mine,
Yeah.
because they're taking the creme de la creme of like my good stuff and selfies and whatever. And I'm like, that's me. Anyway.
Hmm. Yeah, I almost kind of wonder if it's for like Instagram, especially. I wonder if it's them like wanting to pad their user base numbers. Like they don't want to remove spam accounts because they don't, because Instagram's kind of like on the way out compared to places like TikTok. And so maybe they just don't want to remove
Mm,
spam accounts, not even because it's like an anti-sex work thing, but just because they like want to artificially inflate their own numbers of like new users per month and things like that. Like that's just like corporate, just standard corporate bullshit. Even though I think part of it is probably
well,
like if it was a real celebrity, right? Like if it was, somebody that was a mainstream movie person, they probably would actually take the account down. They just don't care.
yeah, well, I mean, that's sort of like a problem of their own making. It's like they're
Yeah.
making this they're actually kicking off and deleting people from the platform who have thousands or even millions of followers who are in the adult industry, but then they don't want to something has definitely shifted. I don't know what it
Mm,
is, but again, they used to take those accounts down and now they're not. So now it's like we don't have like the real people who are on, but we're allowing the
mm,
fake people to be on. This feels like a very backwards, incorrect, and this is not even just in the adult industry. Like the random people get kicked off all the
mm,
time. It's not just we just I think we live in this like adult industry bubble. It's like regular,
mm,
Joe doing boxing videos in Florida. It's him too. It's it's not just us. Unfortunately,
mm.
it's a problem in their company.
Yeah, I don't know how they end up like with I don't know if they have everything just handled by algorithms, if they've handed over the reins to a computer and the computer decides like who gets to stay and who doesn't,
I
but
don't know.
I haven't been active on Instagram in years at this point just because it's like it was so hard to invest in a platform for social media when you know that at any time a photo that would be fine on like a lingerie brand's account that they would never have a problem with is a problem for your account, and then it gets reported, it gets deleted. If somebody decides they don't like you and they just report every single one of your photos in mass, like that can end up actually having real repercussions. Like it's hard, but you need to have social media as a professional
Mm,
because that's how you find people. That's how clients connect you on like a personal level. And
mm,
if you don't have that when everyone else does, then that kind of, I imagine it hurts your business ultimately.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot, but it's like exhausting sometimes, and I'm just trying to explore like other avenues, like on other
Mm-hmm.
forms of social media that are a little bit safer, like a little less
Mm-hmm.
regulated, like doing more things like on Reddit and Telegram and Discord, in
Mm-hmm.
that nature. So find me on Telegram, I'll add you.
Yeah, there's the Reddit actually has been really good. There's a BDSM community on there. It's called r/BDSM community that if people are have an affinity for Reddit, I usually send them towards because it is a lot of like kind of the same basic newbie questions over and over and over again, but like it is a good way to get real like quality answers about like, hey, like I want to try spanking, like how do I do that, like what are my resources, and like 20 people that have been doing spanking for over 15 years, like here's XYZ thing you need to know,
Mm,
here's this book you can read. Like it is actually really helpful, and like people can kind of make a name for themselves on there a little bit, but it is definitely like less regulated compared to places like Instagram or even Twitter. as fun as it is to talk about social media, we have so many other things to cover
Yeah.
as well. So, one of the things that I was curious about, like becoming a dominant, like how did you find your voice and find your style? Because it sounds like you don't necessarily even have like a particular kink that you're known for, or like, I only do medical play or CPT or
Mm.
whatever. Like, how within that did you find your style as a dominant? Did you try other stuff out? Did you do a lot of role play? Like, what was that process like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just, doing it a lot with different clients and just finding things that I enjoyed or didn't. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't apprentice under anyone. And at the time, there wasn't even like a ton of information out there in the form of classes. Like,
Mm.
really, like there'd be maybe a class once in a while at like a sex toy store. Like, there always the cons were happening, but I didn't go to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned a lot from my play partners that were male switches. I feel like for me, like what was the most helpful, it's not about the activity. It's about just really listening to your client and asking what it is they want to do and doing that thing.
Mm.
Sounds really over simple, but it is because I do consulting for like, DOMs doing in person work or how to hone in their skills better. And I said, look, like you just being in the room with them at the same time, looking hot and like your photo, you're 80% of the way there. As long as you do everything else, like you're fine. Like, but just there is 80%. And, for me, it's just really, yeah, just like over time, like understanding like what music I wanted to play and like really dialing it into the client and understanding what it is they want. And like so many people will write to me or tell me after the session, they're like, that's just the best session I've ever had. And the
Mm.
next best session doesn't even come close.
Mm.
And I get that quite often when I dumped out my drawer by accident before this interview. I had like all these cards from people who've given me cards and written me things
Aw.
about that stuff, and people send me messages, and I always love them, and I always print them out and save them. So, um, just I really try to really connect with them and see what it is they want, and make sure that happens, and obviously in a way that's comfortable for me too and what we agree upon. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what is putting me way ahead of other people in my industry when I'm doing the in-person work. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it sounds like it's more about like not even finding yourself as a dominant, but like kind of being able to tune in to your client or to your submissive is like almost the more important thing than finding like a personal sense of style first.
yeah, I mean, well, in terms of doing it professionally, yes, you
Mm-hmm.
got to make that client happy. That's just good
Yeah.
business sense. Like, and that's why I know some DOMs that, they might have a lot of really great skills, but they're not really great. It's a service industry. Like, someone
Uh,
is coming to me and wanting something, but like, it's not just about what I want. Like, it's
mm,
about what they want because they're paying me for this service. It's a
mm-hmm.
service. And it's a service I'm really good at because I understand that. And it's,
Mm,
my in terms of like my style is, my style is like very sophisticated. I'm always like fully done up, and all my nails are always done, and I'm wearing really expensive lingerie or leather or latex or shoes. Like that's my style.
mm,
Unless specifically requested otherwise. But it's funny because I'll ask people in part of my questionnaire, like, oh, well, what would you like me to wear in our session? And sometimes they give me really weird answers, like, oh, or they'll just say, like, oh, whatever you want. And then sometimes they'll say, like, well, can you wear high heels? And I just laugh because I'm like, why would I not wear high heels in session? But I
mm,
don't know what other people are doing in their sessions, But like when I am in session, like I am wearing like that expensive,
mm.
gorgeous, beautiful outfit, and I'm in my my beautiful space, and I have all
Mm.
these wonderful toys, and that's the quality high-end experience that I'm giving you.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, like for shoes, I can imagine a guy who's like really into sneakers that's like, I want you to walk all over me while wearing like a dirty pair of Adidas sneakers. Like,
That's fine.
yeah.
And I have a client who I'm going to see, and we're going to do that together. That's totally fine. But like
Mm,
I ask people what they want, and
mm,
then I do that.
Mhm. Do you think
That's
that's
why
like
I make
a
the big bucks.
yeah. Do you think that's why people like, or do you think people have a misconception about that when they get into being a pro dom? Is they think it's like, oh, well, I have to be this like domineering, in control person all the time, and it doesn't really matter what the client wants, and that kind of steers them in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I mean, because I can only know so much from what clients tell me or what other DOMs tell me. Like, I don't
Mm,
session that much with, doing doubles, and the people I would do doubles with are people who I know that I can be in a room with and we're on the
mm,
same page. So, but it's like, I definitely think it's a misconception from like other people where they're like, well, can't you just tell your client when to come in and what to do? And I said, well, sometimes if that's really what they're into, but they really just want to do the fantasy they want to do when they are able to do it.
mm,
It's a there's a time factor, there's a money factor, there's a when I can get away factor if they're not in a relationship or space where they can just do it whenever they want.
mm,
So I think that is, I mean, it yeah, like certainly there's some clients and some dynamics where it's very much like, I want this now and it's going to be like this. And that's super hot and great.
mm,
But I would not say that that's the majority of my client experiences and what it is. It's like, I feel like I have more power, but whoever is purchasing my power, like who has the most power here?
mm,
The
mm,
person who is creating the fantasy that you want, or the person who has the power to buy it?
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
that's a
we're
good
both in the
point.
same room.
Mm-hmm,
I don't know, and I'm saying that like I don't know. I don't think it's one way or the other. I feel
mm-hmm.
like I have a lot of power, but I also know that like I couldn't afford me.
Yeah.
Who could really? Like so.
That's definitely, yeah, like it's something where, you know, the the tension between like, oh, like who really has the power? Is it the person with the money, or is the person who's actually performing the actions? Because I imagine like if you're in the moment and like somebody with really big sharp nails has like their hands like this around your balls, you probably don't feel like you're the one in control in that moment necessarily. And that's sort of part of it, is like wanting to have that illusion of like maybe loss of control, even if they know that they're
Mhm,
really the ones that are technically dictating what's happening by whatever they request or
mhm.
whatever it is they say yes to.
Indeed. I mean, it's a consensual fantasy of
Mm-hmm.
like that we're both collaborating on, of course.
Yeah, would you say that the majority of your experiences with clients are like more collaborative, as opposed to like them just like strictly dictating stuff, or how does that work out generally when you're putting together a session with a client?
Yeah, I mean, I ask, it's very simple. I feel like it's like a Helmut Lang when he was like doing photography. He's like, you know, I look at the little guide and it says the light should be here and you shoot here. It's like when I'm pro dommy, it's like you want to do this and you don't want to do this, and that's what we do.
Mm,
And and sometimes like I know that clients come to me and they have not great experiences, and like I've had
mm,
clients who are like, okay, but I just want to make sure and this and that and I'm like, sit down, shut up. I'm gonna rock your world. I got you. I know what you want, and I'm gonna do this. It's gonna be
mm,
amazing. And then they're like, okay, you were right. That was amazing. Okay, thank you. Okay, and I feel bad because like look, it's like not everyone's good at their job. But there's no
mm,
Yelp reviews for us. like
yeah.
but like not everyone's good at their job. It's like once in a while I have a bad day too, but it's like not everyone's good at their job, and like who are you going to tell? How are you going to prevent someone else from going to someone who didn't do a good job for you in like the industry? Like DOMs don't really
Mm,
have review sites, and review sites are
mm,
problematic in other ways also.
mm-hmm.
For escorts and stuff, and like
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, totally. Like it's I wish there was more of a way for people to get a sense of like, hey, this person looks the way they present themselves online. They actually have the skills they say they have, but not in a way that would compromise privacy or be used for like
Mhm.
revenge, or for people that didn't even see you at all and are just like making up reviews because that's like a power trip for them, you know?
Indeed, I know it's there isn't a perfect system, and that's true even in like a any mainstream industry like
Mm,
Yelp. Like Yelp has gotten in so much trouble over various reviews that
mm,
people would uh, you know um, fabricate and things like that. So
mm,
yeah, it's hard, but maybe that's why I'm busy, because I just do a lot of interviews and podcasts. So
Yeah, I get that. And thank you so much for being on as well. Like this is
I was so excited that you emailed me.
it was like, yay. Okay, I'm glad we can make this work. But I kind of wondered, like, from the client side of things, like, how is it literally just that simple of like making a list of like, this is what I want to do, this is what I don't want to do, or like what should a potential client do to make sure they're going to have a good experience, like especially if it's their first time ever seeing a pro dom and they might not know what to expect or like how to interact.
Yeah, I think that that's, yeah, I mean, I'm oversimplifying it, but also not really, because yes, I do believe it is as simple as doing the things that they want,
Mm-hmm.
not doing the things that they don't want to do,
Mm-hmm.
or doing the things they, making sure you're not doing the thing that's like a double negative. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah,
and like, but having like style with it, and like I'm funny, and like I'll be really creative in the moment or spontaneous, as long as it's within the framework that I built. But I think that, when it's a first time client, I just try to do so much to make them feel comfortable. And,
yeah.
sometimes I joke with them and I'm like, is this your first time? And they say yes. Then I say, okay, me too. And then they laugh because, of course, that's so silly.
Mm-hmm.
And then they say, okay, I understand now. And it's like I spend a lot of time making sure that they're comfortable. It's like a warm up. It's like when you're doing
Mm.
yoga or any kind of workout. Like, I make sure that they kneel in front of me, and I spend, if the collaring is part of the session, I will put a collar on them and just kind of use my nails and just kind of whisper into their ear, and really get them into a nice safe space. It's not like we
Mm.
just jump in.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if other people do that, but that's like a really bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
So I spend like a couple of songs just like dialing it in, and getting them, ready, because it's like, especially in LA, it's like, my God, you might have gone through like 2 hours of traffic to
Yeah.
get to me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's, like something, a lot of, some instructors say, I do Peloton a lot, is they say,
Mm-hmm.
forget whatever came before this. Don't think about what's coming after this. Just be here in the moment right now with us. And this time is for you. And just feel this in the moment, and be here right now. And let's have this time together. You set
Yeah.
aside this time for you.
I think that's so true. I think a lot of people can get really in their head, whether it be seeing a pro dom or lifestyle BDSM, or just going to a dungeon for the first time and just even seeing BDSM being done at all, even if they're not participating in it. It's so easy to get like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. I'm so nervous. What's going on? Thinking about the traffic I was just in, thinking about
Mm-hmm.
work tomorrow, thinking about is going to change my life. Like, what's going to happen? And just being there and remembering to be present in the moment and kind of using your authority in some way as a dom to sort of remind them like, hey, like, be here, be present with me, can be so so powerful. Like that's like a really good tip to have that a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
forget. That's so simple, but it makes such a big difference.
Indeed. And also, I just want to remind first timers that, like, it takes a lot to contact me, and
Mm-hmm.
come into the dungeon and do your fantasy. Like, I don't think I'd be able to do that. Like, I mean, for like other, like, like sex worker reasons, but it's like, that takes a lot to come in and tell someone else what your fantasy is, and like get naked in this like place, and you're just like, oh my God, I'm here, but what, and it's like exciting, but it's still scary, as it should be. It would be weird if you weren't nervous. Like, it's okay to be nervous. Like, that's a
Mm-hmm.
normal reaction.
Yeah, exactly. And like you can definitely convert those nerves into like having the energy for like a more positive experience. Like you can get kind of drowned in the nerves and be like, oh my gosh, this is all so anxious and everything is making me feel so reactive. And then you also have the ability to, kind of lean into that in a more positive way and use that to sort of embrace the experience as it's happening. But yeah, it's definitely like people that are reaching out to pro doms or going to a dungeon for the first time or anything, you are so much more brave than most people are because you are able to say, hey, here's my fantasy and I want to have this done. Like, can you help me do that? And that's especially because we aren't taught to do that generally in society, in sex ed, or by our parents, or even with partners. Like, that is such a huge, huge step. So, like, round of applause for you. You're doing very,
Definitely.
very brave things for sure. Going back to working with clients and like them having a positive experience with experiencing BDSM. Like, are there certain things that you tend to do with newer people to like introduce them to BDSM if they don't know what they want, or like what do you do when a client comes in and says, I want to try this but I don't really know where to start.
Yeah, I mean, and that happens a lot of the time too. I try to get people to give me at least a few things
Mm.
that they want to do or don't want to do because there's something about me that they've been fantasizing about or thinking about. And it's also okay if you've just been thinking about it, but you've never done it. So, because if you just give me nothing, then I say, they're like, well, I don't know, do whatever you want. And then my response is like, okay, well, give me 10K and leave. And they're like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. I'm like, okay, well, then you know what you want to do, then you have some idea. And like, it's, you know, you need to tell me what that is. But I'll generally do what I say, like the omakase, like the tasting menu of BDSM. So we'll like, you know, do some impact play. We might do
Mm.
some like kneeling, some worship, some tease and denial. You know, I'll try to move them through the space
Mm.
and see what resonates with them and, you know, do some St. Andrew's cross time, some cage
Mm.
time, some spanking horse time, and see how it all goes. And I always say, look, we'll do the things that you want to do, and if something happen and if you like that thing, we're going to keep doing that thing, and if you don't like that thing, we won't do that thing anymore, you know, and
Mm.
just make them feel comfortable. And of course I always play with safe words and things
Mm.
like that. So
Yeah, that was going to be one of my next questions actually is as somebody that does like lifestyle BDSM as opposed to doing something professionally, like things like safe words and aftercare are just like those are like some of the first things you learn about. And is that something that you
mhm.
generally do with clients? Like is it do they get to pick the safe word? Do they get to negotiate what they want for aftercare as part of the general process or what does that look like?
Yeah, I always talk to people. I always make sure that they have a safe word. You know, aftercare, yes, I always make sure it depends on the session if they're allowed to come or not. And I always make sure that they're like, you know, they get to have a shower and water and, you know, I
Mm.
let them chill and hang for a bit. And then, you know, when they're fully clothed and showered, I give them a hug and send them on their way. So yeah, I definitely
Mm.
discuss those things with them and, you know, make sure that they're back on planet Earth
Mhm.
before I
Mhm.
send them off on the freeway.
Mhm.
I mean, that's really important and make sure that they are feeling comfortable throughout the entire wonderful experience of BDSM and being in a room with me.
Mhm. In the time that you've been a pro dom, do you have like sometimes I don't know how to phrase this exactly, but like times when like sessions have gone bad, like somebody's asked for something and then they try it, they don't really like it. Like, what do you do? Like, how do you handle it if something starts happening that the client's like not super into, or they have like a really big reaction to it in a negative way?
I think that doesn't happen too much to me anymore because my like screening process and most of my clients are like regulars at this point, but I am getting a
Mm.
lot of new people because during the pandemic and stuff, and also I usually used to be on tour a lot, so I'm seeing a lot of new people in LA, which is something different for me. So I think that when a session goes, I would say goes awry rather than
Mm.
wrong. It's like
Yeah.
I'm doing so much slow buildup for something that I can really gauge the situation before it would go terribly wrong. You know,
Uh,
it's not like there's no because I'm really building a scene and going through things like in a really carefully meditated way. And like sometimes I think because I've had a bunch of new clients lately and I've gone really slow with them. And I
mm.
said, you know, we're gonna crawl before you're allowed to walk, you
Mm.
know, and really building that up because I'm like, I want you coming back wanting more because I don't want to go too far too fast with someone,
Mm.
and then there's nowhere to go from there.
Mm.
Um, you know, so there's that. Like I had, you know, I think one time I had a client and they were having a really hard day and they said, you know, I've really been looking forward to this, but I had a really hard day and I just wasn't sure if I could be here and I'm not sure, but let's try it. And it was someone I had seen before, and she wanted impact play, and I could tell like mid session she kind of wasn't into it, and I felt like, oh, like, you know, damn it, like, have I lost my touch? You know, what should we do? Like, should I cut the session and just say go home? And then I made this choice to actually go harder and really
Ah.
just beat the hell out of them. And then they just started crying, but in a good way
Mm.
because it was such a release.
Mm.
And then, you know, it was just super intense and really hard. And then I like wrapped them in a towel and like put them on the bed, and then they just passed out for like the rest of the session, just slept. And that was the correct choice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I have these nice Tiffany diamond earrings. But that is not amateur hour. That is advanced
Mm,
Dom Jedi shit.
mm-hmm.
Don't like baby Doms do this if you don't know. Like it was the right choice. And but I think that I'm just paying such close attention to what's happening that it's hard for
Mm,
something to all of a sudden go terribly wrong. But if it's new people, I always say, hey, sometimes you don't know what your boundary is until it happens.
mm-hmm.
Something comes up for you in a way that you weren't expecting or you didn't know, or this didn't happen to me, but it happened to another Dom friend of mine, that she did a session, everything that she said that this client wanted, and then he felt okay, and then all of a sudden a lot of trauma came up for him
Mm,
after he left, and he literally threw up and was like, whoa, like all this
mm-hmm.
stuff just suddenly happened, and now I need to unpack that and deal with that. And that was really huge. That
Yeah.
person is okay now, as far as I know.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
great. They're fine. They're great. They're living a life. They're
Mm-hmm.
good. But it's a lot comes up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's something that people need to be prepared for when they're doing BDSM is like this shit can be intense. Like it can be light and fluffy and nice and funny, but it can also
Hmm.
like very unexpectedly bring up these like, oh, I didn't even realize I hadn't processed that yet type feelings. And I'm curious, do you get like clients that like want catharsis and want like kind of processing of trauma, or is that like a more unusual request?
I think that's unusual, but I think that here's the thing is that I feel like I help people heal a lot, and there's
Mm.
sort of this been backlash, I think, on Twitter, where someone's like, stop calling me a healer, I'm just a sex worker, don't make me responsible for all the things. And I believe that that's also true, and it was just kind of funny, but it's like,
Mm-hmm.
look, for the people who want to come in and they just want to suck my toe and get off, great, they can have that experience with me. For the people who
Mm-hmm.
really want to go deeper and like allow, trust me with their body and like their mind and like their fantasy and their experience to go deeper and to
Mm-hmm.
really like be there with me, like I can take you to that deeper place and we can do that, but we don't
Mm-hmm.
have to.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it's really interesting when you're a pro dom, because in some ways, like, I know my clients better than anyone, but I
Mm-hmm.
know that sometimes my clients are not single, and it's a little sad to me sometimes when like they're not sharing with their partner and they're doing really elaborate like mind games and deals with themselves and promises to participate in a fantasy in one way with one person or many people in a professional setting, but not do this in a open way with their partner. And there's still a lot of sex shaming and kink shaming,
Mm-hmm.
but like it's 2022. There's certainly been a backlash and unfortunately the general politics against a lot of minorities in the community, but we're in the internet times. We've
Yeah.
been in the internet times for like 30 years. If you don't know this exists and you can't find that person, that is really only on you, because we're
Mm.
all connected with the internet now and you can find people who want to do these things with you. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that also just being queer and being so open about like my own personal kink, and because I'm a lifestyle dom too, being so open in the queer community and BDSM community, I think that gives, because people tell me that gives them a lot of strength and assurance that
Mm-hmm.
people like me like this stuff too, like people who look like they shop at Pottery Barn, are kinky, and
Mm-hmm.
like that kind of thing. And it's femmes or mean ladies too, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is. So I think that that's helpful, that having more representation and seeing more people out there who are into these things is
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah. Do you think it's mostly like shame that keeps people from wanting to discuss this openly with their partners, like as a desire they have? Like they just don't want to like rock the boat and like ruin the relationship? Or do you think there might be something else like behind that?
Yeah, I mean, because I think that, no one wants to be made fun of
Mm.
unless you're into it,
Yeah,
no one wants to
humiliation.
be made, yeah, yeah, yeah. People don't want to be made fun of. They don't want to be made to feel dumb. They don't
Mm.
want people to think that, because a lot of this is still very much in the closet. Like, if you want to, like, for example, like if you told all of your friends, I really want to go to a wine tasting right now because I'm really into wine.
Mm.
Unless you were like a part of a religious community that didn't allow drinking, no one would think that was weird or
Yeah.
bad at all. But if
Mm-hmm.
you told all your friends, unless they were my friends or your friends,
Mm-hmm.
hey, y'all, I want to go to a play party tonight and I want to get spanked. A lot of people would be like, what? But a lot of people would be into it. It's like you always know like who's kinky like in the room when
Mm-hmm.
someone says like, what do you do for a living? It's like I'm a dominatrix, and some people are like, I don't know what that is, and other people are like, ooh, oh, tell
Mm-hmm.
me more. So yeah, I think it is kink shaming. I think it's fear. I think it's that we're still not being open and having authentic conversations about sex and kink, but also just a lot of things. Like, I mean, do you have transparent and authentic conversations with people about money? Not a lot of
Mm.
people do. So, and why do we do this? Well, I mean, the patriarchy, like,
Yeah.
like, yeah, like, so let's not do that. Let's have authentic conversations
Mm.
about the cool stuff, and let's like have happy, authentic lives in the ways that we
Mm-hmm.
can. And I have a lot of conversations with people about sex and kink, and
Mm-hmm.
also about money because I think that's really important, and sharing our money stories.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's not, but well, why do you think people don't share?
I mean, I think that's it's probably I think fear of losing a relationship is a big motivator, and also they don't even know how to start that conversation. Kind of like what you were saying about, not having authentic conversations and openly about money or
Mm-hmm.
about anything like that. They're like they don't do it in little ways that are maybe less risky. And so when it comes to something really big, like I have a fantasy that like you're like my giantess dom who steps on me and like does XYZ thing, like they don't even know how to like open that conversation because they might, if they're like really vanilla monogamous, like I know a lot of people that consider like watching porn to be cheating. Like it's like the door
Yeah, and
is
that's
so, yeah.
exactly, and that's also really not a good message to
Mm-hmm.
be out there, and we're like, or people think masturbating is
Oh.
cheating or
Mm-hmm.
something, and that's awful. And it's like, I had, because I do a lot of classes too in BDSM 101, and like I have
Mm-hmm.
some free tools, and one of them is a kink negotiation worksheet. And
Mm-hmm.
I saw a group of women once, and they said, oh, well, some of us are into this, but how do we get the conversation started? And I
Mm-hmm.
literally didn't understand what they meant, because it wasn't even just like, because I said, well, I can't talk to your partner for you, and I can't like stick my hand up your ass and move your mouth for you. It's your partner. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you need to talk to them. Like, you literally need to talk to them. And I'm not even talking for really big, like really elaborate fantasies. It was just like, can we like maybe explore a little spanking in the back? Like, it was something like so mundane and
Mm-hmm.
easy and chill. And I said, well, you need to just talk to them. You need to say, hey, like, when is a good time to talk about some sexy things I'd like to
Mm-hmm.
do in the bedroom with you? And
Mm-hmm.
then you say what you want, and it's really scary. But if you don't ask or mention it, you're not gonna get it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you do you think no one's a mind reader?
Mm-hmm.
If we were, then life would be easier or harder. But we need to discuss what it is we want and ask for it so we can get it. And it's like at play parties, like the people are having the most fun and are getting the most action. They are absolutely not like the most societal hottest people. They're the
Mm-hmm.
people who are going around and talking to people and telling people what they want and asking for what they want. Those are
Mm-hmm.
the people getting the most action.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. People definitely have this stereotype in their heads of like, oh, well, like I could never be part of the BDSM community because like I'm overweight and I'm older, I'm not very attractive, like no one's gonna want to play with me. And you go to any play party, like definitely the same thing where I live, like the people that are having the most scenes and the tops that are doing the most scenes are not the ones that are like the most conventionally attractive or like
mm-hmm,
25 and
mm-hmm,
ripped like a Greek god. Like it's the people that are like they're friendly, they communicate, they ask
mm-hmm,
for things that they want to have, and they have the skills to
mm-hmm.
back it up, right? If they're a top and they're asking
Yes,
for play, like if they say they want to do a flogging, they actually know how to hold a flocker correctly.
yes.
And that's like the confidence is a really big part of it. Like you have to be willing and brave enough to go out and say, hey, this is what I want. But in my opinion, as I'm a approaching 30 at this point, I am in a place in my life where I also want to encourage other people, like, don't spend time on relationships that aren't going to serve you. And if what you really want is a DS relationship or spankings every night during sex or whatever it is, you have to ask for that, and you don't want to live your whole life like wishing you had something, because you never know, because like you could talk to your partner, they'd be like, oh, I'm also really into that, and then like you spent the first 5 years of your relationship not doing something that both of you would have liked to do. So don't miss out on the
Yeah, or something that you don't want to do. It's like, like
mm-hmm.
when I first started, I remember I would see clients like in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. Some of those people are probably dead now, but
Mm.
I understand why they couldn't or didn't communicate with their partner about kink things. But if you are like under 50 and not communicating to your partner that you like kinky stuff, that is all on you. Like I remember I talked to a client, and what he wanted me to do in terms of like the super complicated mental gymnastics of how to have a relationship with me and his partner. And I will never forget it. And I always talk about it because I asked him, I said, well, how long have you been kinky? Have you known you've been kinky? And he said, 10 years. And I said, how long have you been dating your partner? And he said, 5 years. And I said, how long have you been married to your partner? And he said, 2 years. And I said, okay, so you've known you were kinky for 10 years, but the last 5 years of your relationship with this person, you never found it important enough to mention, but it's so important to you that you're trying to find a way to incorporate it. And now you're married and it never came up and you live
Mm.
together. Like, I tweeted one day, I'm like, look, not to talk myself out of a job, but some of y'all need to start talking to your partners about your stuff, and I do work with couples, and, sometimes I've seen clients for years and then they come in as a couple, or then they rent my space, and that's really beautiful and wonderful. It doesn't have it can be so many different ways, but I really want people to have authentic relationships with the people that they're with. And I think during the pandemic, unfortunately, a lot of people had some rude wake up calls in realizing that their partners were not people they wanted to be with. And sometimes for kink and sex reasons, and sometimes for straight up racist reasons of like, whoa, I didn't know you were racist because we never talked about race, which is also weird. But they realized that. And so that happened too. And so I just hope that I just always encourage people to have authentic conversations, even if it's hard. Even if it's hard. I've had so many conversations with friends and my partners, and they were hard conversations and they were awkward, but I'm so glad that we had them because it brought us closer in ways that were more meaningful and stronger. And, I'm so blessed that I have this amazing, wonderful partner, but we've had some like hard talks, like of like icky things we didn't want to talk about or deal with, but we did because we promised ourselves that we would, and we're better for it, and it gets easier. And then we say like, wow, neither of us have been able to have such, not radical honesty, that's gross, authentic, just having these authentic conversations with each other.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I can't imagine like like knowing you were kinky and then like being with somebody for 5 years and then getting married and then like never bring that up as part of the conversation. I'm like, why would you? How could you get that far? Like, I get it when you're like you're not really sure what you're into and you kind of discover it like during the relationship and it's sort of like they kind of form sort of at the same time or afterwards. But when you already know, like, how do you not bring it up? Wow, it's just that's
Yeah, like
something.
what do you talk about?
I wonder sometimes.
I know, it's like, what would you like to do? Nothing. You're really like clamped down, and it's like,
Mm,
but it's like it's hard for me because I don't. Most of the people that I spend time with in my personal life are kinky, they're queer,
mm,
they're into BDSM, they're poly, and
mm,
we all have really wonderful open conversations. Like we were so prepared during COVID protocol things, like what makes you feel comfortable? Is this okay? Do you feel okay in this situation? Is it okay if we're in here? And
mm,
and that was a really easy conversation for us all to jump into because we were so practiced asking people those questions, and a lot of people aren't. And when I sort of run into people once in a while like that, it's a real culture shock for me
Mm.
that people don't talk to their, like, it doesn't even occur to them to talk to their partners
Mm-hmm.
about stuff. Like, I I have another, and it's like, you know what? Your partner is, like you said, might be into the same thing too. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
remember I had a client, and he was, sneaking away to see me on a Sunday or something, or whatever it was. I want to say Sunday, but it was just some random day. And I said, well, what do you tell your wife when you're gone? And he said, oh, I just tell her I'm doing stuff with the church. And I said, oh, okay, well, but aren't you in the same church? I said, but doesn't she notice, like, that you're not doing stuff at the church? Because she, in my mind, I thought she goes to the same church. Don't you get caught in that lie? Without skipping a beat, he says, oh no, we go to different churches. My mind was blown, and I
Oh
was
my
like, oh my
gosh.
God, she's sneaking off too. And they neither of them question what the other is doing because it's their
Uh,
lie.
mm.
What if they're into the same thing? What if she
I
was my next client? I don't know. And I was like,
Oh
oh
my
my
God.
God. Not to blow up anyone's spot. Maybe she is going to church, but maybe she's not. And I was
Mm-hmm.
just like, oh my God, talk to each other.
Oh my
Like,
gosh, that is yeah, especially with the fact that it's a lie based around church is like doubly funny for me because it's like, oh yeah, I'm being a nice, good, wholesome Christian and then going and getting my ass beat by a woman like on a wholesome
right? Like,
Sunday.
and no one, and they didn't. I want to believe that in my heart, I believe that they were both lying, and they were both like having some fun on the side, but they
Mm,
might have been able to have that fun with each other.
I
I don't
know.
know, but
Oh
it
my
was just so
gosh.
funny that neither of them questioned whatever that was. That they,
Yeah.
just, oh, I'm at the church. Okay.
Have you ever
Mm,
been to the other one's church? Does that church actually exist? Like,
I don't
that's
know.
so funny.
I don't. I never encourage lying. I always encourage telling a version of the truth that the other person is the most comfortable with and that you are the
Mm,
most comfortable with. And I just think that that's the best way.
mm-hmm,
I tell my friends what I do. I tell my family what I do. I'm very real about that. And I
mm,
just think that is better. Does not serve people to be in the closet, but you don't need to like tell people the nitty gritty of what you're doing. But like it's just much better for us if it is safe for you to do so. Please don't be in the closet
mm-hmm.
in ways. Yeah, it's just not helpful to
Yeah, it's just like
anyone.
if you can be open, like you said, like you can tailor your message to the person you're giving the message to. You don't have to be like dramatic, like, oh my gosh, I have this terrible confession I must do, and I've been seeing this product. But you don't have to do anything over dramatic, but like you can just, say it in a way that the person can actually hear what the message is. You don't like the radical honesty thing that you mentioned, like I am
Yeah,
also iffy about just because I find it tends to be used as like an excuse to be an asshole and like just say
exactly,
whatever you want without any
exactly.
regard. But yeah, it's you
Hmm.
know, truthful but not hurtful. There's a way to do both. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and well, that's why I try to use the word authentic. Like,
Mm,
really like be real about who you are, and having that conversation with your partner or others. And like, I think that it's like, you don't have to, like, I'm trying to think of an example, but I feel like this happens in media and stuff like that, where it's like, in order to not for people not to look at you like you're the kinky one, so then you're going to say something that's really kink or sex shamey. You
uh,
don't have to say it. Like, you don't have to be like, hi, I'm a big old, like, big old power bottom or whatever. You don't have to like say that, but you don't have to like say like, yeah, well, that kinky shit is like just terrible and not for me, and like, or not for anyone, and what are they doing? Like, you don't have to go that route either.
mhm.
So, I'm sympathetic to like some people tell me that they have told partners about it, and then they've again, like, been really shamed, and that's not good either. And it's hard and it's sad, but it's like, then that relationship wasn't good for you anyway. That
Mhm.
person, you're telling that person who you are, and that person is telling you who they are, and it's not compatible. Like,
Do you like when you have scenarios when you have a client where they open up to a partner and the partner like doesn't respond positively, do they tend to stay with that partner like long term, or does that tend to be like the first domino in like the relationship ending eventually?
well, I've definitely broken up a lot of relationships, and I've definitely helped a lot of relationships stay together.
Hmm.
Um, and I also am happily referring people to sex therapists and couples counselors that are my friends and stuff that are sex positive and kink positive and sex worker positive. I am not a therapist at all. So I think it just depends. I think that if there has to be, it's never a single issue. Where some people who I've helped stay together, they just needed to figure out a middle ground of how to do kink together. And then they're even happier because that was like the one thing that they just needed to dial in.
Yeah.
For the people who were completely not compatible, because quite frankly, someone was gay, and then realized not only were they like hella fucking kinky, they were also hella fucking gay. They were like, oh, yeah, that's not gonna work. And then I've had a lot of clients who transitioned and realized that, wait a minute, I'm not the way I'm not to the world the way that I know that I am inside. And I've had a lot of clients come out to me and say, like, thank you. You really saw me as being, as a woman. And you were the first person who really saw me. And then, years later, they've become a woman, they're who they are. And, that's really wonderful too. So I think that I hope that I help people move along, and I feel like I'm a catalyst in a lot of ways for people, because sometimes I see people just a couple times and they're like, I'm in a new relationship and I'm so happy, or I'm going through a divorce and I'm also, whoa, it's been a minute, but it's where I need to be. And I get that a lot. I feel like I get that more than most people do, like, because I'm, but I hope that what people are doing is making them happy and they come back around or just want to like give me more money.
Yeah, I mean, it's good business if clients are happy and if their relationships are happy. Like, that's good for everyone. And I like that you mentioned that you refer people to like outside like mental health people, whether that be couples therapists or sex therapists. I think that's so important. It's almost like kinky holistic healthcare, which
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I do this thing that's sort of like kinky, like it's like it's like tongue-in-cheek dominatrix therapy, where I like work through all your issues in an hour, but it's always like a tongue-in-cheek thing. And I'm like, if you need help beyond what I can give you, I will refer you out. And I do it very carefully, because I will, I just worked with one client who was having a lot of boundary issues, and I was very careful working with that person, because again, I'm not a therapist and I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist. And I wanted to be very sure and careful that she had a regular therapist and that she was going to a certain kind of meeting that was helpful for her and her situation. And she was all on board with that. But I also helped her work through like a huge fucking thing. And she's doing, I'm being very vague, obviously on purpose, but she's really able to reach that goal in a way that she wasn't able to before working through like traditional talk therapy. So
whenever you can like help somebody, I imagine that's like a really rewarding thing to do, because I imagine a lot of people, like if they are starting their process of like opening the can of worms, right? Sometimes the kinky stuff, because it's sort of, that's the easiest to work through sometimes, because it's like, well, it's physically rewarding for me to do this. And then you dig a layer deeper and it's like, oh, there's these like boundary issues and this kind of thing with my mom. And then like,
it's always the mom.
Layers. Yeah.
It's always boundary issues, and it's always the mom. Yeah.
Mommy issues. Mommy issues, we all got them. But
my mother died early on, so I have other issues, but they're not mom ones. I'm like, I have a lot of problems, but that's not it. That's not my drawer, So, but it is. It's really hard, and I always say like, well, because where do we learn boundaries? It's from our parents, and where did they learn boundaries? Definitely not from our grandparents. It's our generation that I feel is so exciting, because unfortunately, some of us are doing double duty, because we're trying to teach our parents, and we're also trying to teach our children these things. And I don't have actual children, I have fur children, but it's like, I hope that we're doing so much work to really help actual healing. Like I was just talking to a relative, and he was saying, yeah, I'm in therapy because my daughter was in therapy and I saw how much it helped her. And then I'm doing therapy now. And I'm like, mind blown. Like, thank you. We're healing. I hope we're healing. We hope we're healing. We're doing
Yes.
good. We're
Yes.
doing good. Yeah.
As long as it really just takes being that example. Like I also have people in my life that I know were like they were the first one to like step into doing therapy or doing something maybe personal coaching or something like that, and then through what they learned, they were like, hey, I think this could be really helpful for you. And then because it gets more normalized, because especially if it's like our grandparents or something, like if you went to a shrink, it was because you were crazy, you need to be locked up. And there was so much
Yeah.
stigma around it that,
Yeah.
and especially after COVID and being locked up, like I think we could all use a little bit of therapy. I think we deserve like, can we get like a voucher for like a free like 2 sessions or something just to sort of like work on a little bit of something?
Oh my God, exactly. And I think that I'm so glad that yeah, you're right. It creates a ripple effect.
Mm-hmm.
If you're seeing a therapist, then other people are encouraged, are feel like it's more okay for them to, or even just doing things like setting boundaries. When you start
Mm-hmm.
setting boundaries, other people set better boundaries too. And that's also helpful. But yeah, I always tell people like talking to a therapist is talking to an objective third opinion. They've got no skin in this game. You can
Mm-hmm.
bounce stuff off of them. And I have a really supportive friend circle and chosen family circle. And, it's really wonderful talking to a therapist, but also it's like, after the last couple of years of what we've all collectively been to, who doesn't need to talk to someone? Like, I've in some ways had it better than most people when I hear other stories of what's happened to people. And you're right, we all need some kind of self-care and healing regimen anyway, but especially after everything that we've been through and still things that are coming up.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, please find self-care that works for you. Like my partner
Yes.
does a sound bath. So
Ah.
that's like in the
Mm-hmm.
dungeon or online, but just whatever. It's finding something that you're calming your nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
We're all just like
Yeah. And I think actually, the last interview I did was with a sexologist that has a newer YouTube channel on here. Their name is Carly DeVille. And they talked a lot about how the research shows that a lot of people get into cross dressing or like kink more broadly as a stress relief thing, as a way of, just having an escape from everyday life stresses. And so in a way, like kink can also sort of serve as that way to have an outlet, whether they're a kinky sound bath or crawling on hands and knees and being human furniture. Like there's so many ways to relieve stress, but you have to have something in your life. You can't just keep it bottled up forever.
Yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
good escape. Yeah, I love sound baths and edibles and watching all the Marvel things. I'm not a nerd, but I just really want to be in a different multiverse. And like, what are things you do for your self-care practice?
Um, I spend a lot of time outside. I live in a new
Mm,
place now, and the house that I'm in now, there's a huge garden. So I've been spending like almost every day this summer, like outside picking fruit and taking care of the lawn, and just being with my dog and cooking
mm.
and baking and making jam, like stuff that sounds very like trad wife, like
Oh,
homemakery that people would probably not assume
like-
I do at all. But I really love it. It's just so relaxing to be out in nature, and I live so far north that like I'm in this small band of the year where like the sunlight will be able to help me produce vitamin D. So like I'm getting my vitamin D supplement in like naturally, which is nice. But yeah, like meditation, I love
Mhm,
like yin yoga is like my
mhm,
favorite thing for that. Fortunately, I haven't found a place here where they offer like yin yoga sessions. But
mhm.
if people like are intimidated by yoga and they're like, I can't do all those crazy poses, like yin yoga is a really good way to like get into it, and it helps you like sit with your body a lot. Like it helps you like
Mm.
hold those poses and be in that moment, and I think that's one of the big benefits of it. But yeah, there's so many things you can do.
That's awesome. Yeah, all of
Mm-hmm.
those are really wonderful. I try to do like a 20-minute walk with my partner every day. Like I walk
Mm-hmm.
her like a dog, She's like, I gotta go for my walk. It's time.
Yeah.
And so not on a leash, that would be weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, doing things, trying to be out in nature as much as possible, and at least like having 20 minutes, outside. And I'm off for most of August to go back to my East Coast chosen family, and we're going to be very much in nature, in the
Mm-hmm.
woods, and at the beach, and I'm really looking forward to that. And it's so nice to be able to have that reset, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just good. Like we all need to have a daily, weekly self care
Mm-hmm.
practice, and to just be in our bodies and relax. It's
Yes,
so good.
and take that break and get to spend time with your chosen family. So
Mhm.
so wonderful. I know we're running low on time here. So
Oh yeah.
I let's see if I can ask one more question. What would
Okay.
I ask about? Actually I'm kind of curious for people that are, we talked about clients being new with things, but for DOMs that are new, do you have any like quick advice you'd give them? Like, because I know you mentioned you didn't do an apprenticeship or anything.
Mhm.
Would you recommend people do that, or do you think that's kind of like overrated?
I think it really depends.
Mm.
Doms kind of have a big ego. Like I find that when I've seen a lot of Doms like train people, it's like it feels like it's coming from a real ego place,
Mm.
and it or like like these Dom training weekends and like I don't know. It feels like a money grab to me, and it just sure if it works for you, fine, whatever. I think that I mean if you find it helpful, like great.
Mm.
I think taking classes is great. I mean, obviously take my classes, but it's like
Yeah.
I don't have like this. I am so like centered in my dominance and who I am as a
Mm.
person and a being that like I'm just walking into the room as me, but me is this amazing person. But I don't. There's no like ego attached to this in this way that's like a domitude,
Mm.
and I encourage people. I say like, look, when I do classes, like I do make a lot of jokes and stuff like that, and I say, if someone tells you this is the only way to do something, you know that they're full of shit, because that just means that that's the only way they know how to do something, so therefore
Mm-hmm.
that's the only way they want you to do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I just say like, here are some danger things to not do. So I think I don't want to just toot my own horn, but I am
Mm-hmm.
great. But I think taking a variety of classes and seeing from different people, because I've taken a lot of classes from other people, and some of them have been really wonderful, and I've learned things, and some people have not been so great. But
Mm.
I think what I would caution people against is if you see programs that are like, here is how to be a professional dominatrix.
Mm.
I would not take that course, because one, with Sesta Fosta, it's just sort of like illegal, but like it's
Ah,
just kind
yeah.
of which really so because there's a lot that goes into what I'm doing to make money as much as I am. And like,
Mm.
there's only certain skills you can teach someone. Like, I can teach you how to
Mm.
be a dominant. I can teach you like how to screen people. I can teach you how to do online stuff. I do a lot of like online platform things. But in order to teach you how to have a certain skill set like this, that's like very complicated, and it's like to lay out a lot of money for doing that. Like, I just feel like people sell that as like you're gonna have a quick return, and like that's not reality. Like
Mm.
the way that professional doming has gone in the last few years in terms of advertising because of Sesta Fosta is
Yeah.
just like really different.
Mm.
um and I don't even really advertise anymore, for various reasons. I've moved a lot of it to online, so I don't, and commercial houses don't really exist the way that they used to either. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think that I'd really be very cautious of those. If someone, and that's like with anything, it's like, don't believe any get rich quick schemes.
Mm-hmm.
Make back your money in like 3 days, or no,
Mm-hmm.
it sounds gross. Like, it
Mm-hmm.
sounds weird. So I would caution against that. And I would, now that we're able to go out into play parties and events and stuff, I really encourage people, if that's available to them and comfortable to them, to watch other people play.
Yeah.
Really watch other people play and see what they're doing, and look at that. I mean, I do have a class called On Top, Exploring Your Dominant Persona, that I go into more detail about that. But yeah, I see seeing people in person and as much as you can, and observing them, and watching porn or watching like high end like dirty movies and stuff like that, and
Mm-hmm.
just explore, play, read books, watch movies, do all the fun things.
Yeah, yeah. Like I think I sort of think about it like treating it like a serious hobby. Like go and explore and like get really into it in the same way that somebody is really into like, you know, Star Wars or whatever, gets like really into it and they watch all the movies and the games and everything, like get into it, but don't necessarily treat it like so seriously that you're like afraid to start because you're like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. I'm afraid I'm going to do it wrong. And so I'm not going to do anything because I'd rather not do anything to do something that's wrong, which is also like, I think part of the reason why people find kind of comfort in the advertising of like a spend this one weekend and then learn how to be a dom is I think they're going to go through like a conveyor belt where they go through a machine that turns into a dom on the other side, and it's like it's not that easy. I wish it was, but no, sorry.
No, and you know, my partner from and I have talked about it from a marketing perspective. She's like, if you did this, like you would make a killing. And I was like, but I can't even say it with a straight face. Come spend the weekend with me and I'll make you a dominatrix. Like, no, like I can't even, yeah, oh, God. It's not, from a marketing perspective, like I could probably run a group like that and make it. And she's like, well, just do it your way, make it really good. And I said, but I don't even know. Well, right now with like Eventbrite, that just made all my events private. I don't even think I can get that up there anyway. But like, yeah, you're right. Like, be playful with it. Like, explore. Like, have fun with it. Like, start with like a BDSM 101 class. People will say all the time, like, I just don't even know where to start. You know, obviously I do, you know, private trainings, but yeah, like start with just like checking out BDSM 101 stuff. And like, I mean, I'm here in Los Angeles and we do a lot of newbie friendly events. And then also I want to shout out, I mean, Dungeon East does those, but also 910 Weo here in Los Angeles does a lot of really wonderful programming for newbies, and they're very safe and very conscious. So I really support them a lot. And so if you're in town or you can be in town, I highly recommend them.
Yeah, for sure. So is there anything else you wanted to shout out besides that as we wrap up this episode?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, I thank you so much for having me here today. I really appreciate that. I was like, oh my God, you know me. And I was like, oh God, thank God you did a good reaction video, because someone did a bad reaction video to something I did and they were really mean to me.
Oh, no.
And I was like, what? Like,
Oh, no.
anyway, I'll send it to you later. Anyway,
Okay.
but yeah, I just want to say thank you. But you know, to find out more about me, Justine Cross, go to losangelesdominatrix.com. Please sign up for my mailing list, because that is always the best way for us to connect. You can find me on Twitter as Justine Plays. I have a barely used YouTube channel, but you can also find me on Instagram as the Justine Cross, and those are my only socials. You might find a lot of fake Justines out there, but don't accept any wooden Justines.
Yes.
Flesh
Yes.
Justine, yes. Thank you. But thank you so much for having me again.
Yeah, of course. It was a pleasure having you on. And then I think you mentioned you might be doing a podcast as well. I don't know if you
Oh,
wanted
yes.
to shout
Okay.
that out. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Okay. I have been wanting to do this podcast for such a long time. I will finally start doing it in September. Accountability both. It is going to be called Dear HBIC, and it is going to be an advice style podcast. So please write in your questions and things that you need help with. I want to help you and tell you what to do. I'm really good at it, and I love telling people what to do. So there will be kink and sex questions, but I want it to be like all stuff. I want to hear about your neighbor, your cat, your partner, your ingrown toenail. I will help you out. Okay, so Dear HVAC, that is coming soon. I've just had some equipment issues and some video editor issues. So getting it all together now. So
Yes.
thank you. Yes.
All right. Well, I'm very much looking forward to that. Sounds like a great, like, modern version of like what are they like the
Dear Abby.
Dear Abby. I was like, Dear Alice. That's not what it is.
No, you're thinking maybe you're conjoining like Go Ask Alice with Dear Abby or Ann Landers and
something like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Well, anyways, again, thank you so much for being on. It was a pleasure having you. Good luck with all of your projects and your vacation that's coming up. And then if you guys listening have any questions, you can put them in a comment down below. If you enjoyed this, please do subscribe. I will be doing previews on my Patreon of these interviews. So if you want to see them early, or if you want to see the full versions of them, if I have to cut anything out for time, those will be over on Patreon. And stay safe, guys. And I will talk to you all again very soon. Bye.